Another rifle in the Bring Back Trophies of War series that we have is this Russian M9130 sniper. This has a pretty interesting story. This rifle has a lot of history, and as you'll be able to see from this gun, it has seen a lot of use.
Yes, it has. This story, or this particular gun's got a, like Terry was saying, got quite the story behind it. It's a M9130 PU sniper. Uh, it's manufactured in 1943 in Russia, captured in Vietnam. So potentially, this firearm could have been used not only in the Second World War, but it was, of course, used in Vietnam.
And could it have seen use in Korea as well?
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, it just depends on where this firearm took its trek from Russia, from the Second World War in 1943 to like the which we have the bring back papers on here, which it was brought back to the United States in 1971. So, um, it that's a heck of a trek. Um,
Yeah, it's definitely had a journey.
oh yeah. Now we were talking about in our bring back video of the SKSs, uh, how many different types of firearms were found in Vietnam and by our troops and so on. And when you see a Russian sniper rifle, and of course the 9130s in 7.62 by 5.4 rimmed, uh, when you see a rifle like that coming out of Vietnam, uh, you see all the different countries that had involvement there. Whether the Russians were there mostly in support in arms and munitions and so on and so forth, where there were supposedly Chinese troops there, and there are definitely Chinese firearms there. And when you see this gun in this configuration, you're not going to see your average soldier using this, even though it's got the fixed sights and has a 3.5 powered PU scope. Its main purpose is sniping. The
Yeah.
story to kind of go along with this gun, there's a young man that was a lieutenant in the Army, and he was with his patrol, and they were coming up on a village. Uh, they were instantly fired upon. His sergeant, also one of his best friends, was hit, which resulted in his death. Uh, the lieutenant commanded his troops to enter, the village. They eventually shot the sniper that had this rifle. That sniper was part of a North Vietnamese or Viet Cong contingency that had the village under siege. Uh, when the lieutenant and his men actually liberated the village, the village elders presented this rifle to that lieutenant, and he got the bring back papers and so on and brought it back with him. I only know the story because I talked to this gentleman that brought this gun back personally, and he had photos of the people in that village giving the gun to him, presenting the gun to him, which he would not let me share, and that's personal. And you know, it took a loss of one of his friends to bring this gun back, and to know that all these guns that we've had here could have maybe never seen action. Maybe they were part of a rear contingency that got carried and beat up and banged up and never saw any action. I know for a fact with that particular story that was told to me that this gun took the life of an American soldier. Uh, there's nothing to be proud of there. There's nothing to relish in that fact. It's just this particular gentleman that brought this gun back. This is more a memorial to him of of his fallen comrade.
Well, he had a serious connection to
That's
this rifle.
correct. To this one, and I mean that's one of those things that I guess could be a burden, or it could be I could say a memorial. And it's sad, that it had to be captured that way. The result of several deaths when it comes down to that. I mean, I'm sure that the guy that was using the gun had a family too, but that's war, and to know a story that kind of goes along with it and know how it was brought back and a little bit about it. That as far as this whole series that we've had, this is the only firearm out of the whole bunch that will actually know how it got here. As far as the papers and so on that came with the gun, it says war trophy registration authorization, theater inclusive period of service in overseas command, Republic of Vietnam, 2nd June 1970 to 1st June 1971. Gives the individual's name and so on, rank and everything. And then it says description of war trophy, describe item if firearms indicate make, type, rifle, pistol, Russian rifle model 1891-30, 7.62 with telescopic sight. Then it has a serial number identifying mark if firearm include country manufacturer, and it has a serial number in Soviet Union. And this was dated 3rd April 1971. And with our SKSs that we had there, they had form after form after form, and I could tell that there had been other things attached to this that aren't with it now, but there is a different paper that the other didn't have that is actually a firearms export license from South Vietnam. It's got some information about the firearm and stuff on here, and actually a date in December of 1971, which is kind of odd. And it looks like he not only brought back this particular rifle, but according to this, he also brought back a Type 56 SKS, also Chinese. And this was the only firearm, though, that he mentioned, to me when I got that and got a hold of these papers and so on.
So this thing looks like it has just been beat to death.
Oh yeah, I mean,
the finish is rough. The finish on the stock. I mean, there's still some of the lacquer left on it, but I mean, this thing's rough. It has.
Oh, it has.
It has seen some travels.
Well, I mean, of course, with it being manufactured in 1943 and potentially seeing action in the Second World War, then whatever happened between the Second World War, where this was captured in Vietnam, I mean, good gosh, this thing's been through the mill. The rear sight doesn't have a leaf spring under it; it's broke. So the leaf, that sight is just loose. I don't know if that happened as a result of combat, or if it happened between the time that this gentleman brought this gun back. The scope is milky. You can hardly see through it. There's still magnification there. It's not clear at all.
We'll give you guys a shot of that here in a bit.
Yeah, and like Terry will do he'll go around and film a walk around of the gun to kind of get a little closer look at it. But it still does have the cleaning rod. The barrel bands are in place. The bore is incredibly bright on this gun. I really would have expected this thing to look like 100 miles of bad road, but the bore is very nice. The stock, where it's made, of course, with the line, but that bottom chunk of this stock is somewhat loose and only being held on by the bottom screw of the butt plate. This, as far as everything that we've had in this series, to me, it's just like this is the pinnacle of all of those firearms, because of the fact that heck, you could have seen action and we know 2 separate theaters of war, period, from the World War II to Vietnam.
Things like this, they're relics. They are literally just a piece of history. and some people would try to place a value on these guns, and ones like this, to me, they have no monetary value.
Oh gosh,
they're
no.
a priceless piece of history.
Yeah.
It's,
I mean, when you take a look at this from the other side, and you have that bent down bolt, and it comes back and everything is solid. I mean, everything is really solid. And my gosh, I don't think you could get that scope off of there right now. It's been on there so long and everything's so tight. It's rock solid. Barring the fact that we've got a broken, spring under our rear sight. The gun is perfectly usable right now, and it's a rough rifle, but I'm sure it still shoots fine. I am rather sure of that. It's the stock looks like somebody's gnawed on it. And it's actually a laminated stock. It's not just a single piece wood stock or whatever. This is a laminated stock. It may not have even survived as well as it has if it hadn't been. The adjustments on this scope are opposite of what you've got on most scopes nowadays. Your elevation is on top like it is, but the windage is on the left side of the scope, and it just has the 2 screws in this scope ring and 1 in this one. That's just the way those PU mounts were. It's got the screw here that would actually keep everything in place and forward. But my gosh, that thing, it's probably rusted in place. So there's no way I'd ever try and separate the 2 pieces. You can hardly read anything that's on this receiver. I had to use a magnifying glass just to find proofs and the data manufacturer and so on. When you think about the jungles of Southeast Asia, they weren't too friendly to firearms at all. And
the humid climate.
Oh gosh! And to see that this particular gun, made its way from Russia to Southeast Asia, Vietnam. It's just incredible. It's got any finish left on it from its age, but the bore's bright. The gun's usable, but also, thinking about that, someday we'll be talking to having an M16 or something along those lines, and have it setting out and talk about it and what kind of condition, shape, or whatever will it look like after it's been through the combat situation this has been through. I mean, I've seen guns come back, pictures of guns that I've friends of mine that have come back from Afghanistan and Iraq where, my goodness, there's hardly any finish left on M16s or M4s or whatever. So, the chance of those being in any kind of shape, even maybe comparable to this at that age, who knows? But this gun's made it through it. 73 years.
These 9130s, I mean, they were really built like tanks.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, when it's got its lineage all the way to 1891 to present, it's one of the longest serving rifles in military service. Period. They're still finding them in Afghanistan today, so they're everywhere. But this one though was found in Vietnam. So it's kind of a sobering fact when you actually have a firearm sitting in front of you that a story behind historically, that it's been in a wartime action. Terry, when you look at that gun and you think about the story and you think about where it's been, what goes through your head,
Oh, I'm in awe whenever I get to spend time with something like this. Because like I said earlier, it's a piece of history, and this gun. Just think about if this piece of equipment could talk and tell you the things that it's seen. Some of that stuff I wouldn't. That's a story I might not want to know.
Yeah.
What has been seen through this scope.
Yeah, as they say, war is hell, and the picture that scope you know, may not be a good picture. You know, you think about war movies and all the glamour and all the glory that goes along with that. I don't think there's much glamour and glory and all the killing that's been done over the years through war. I mean, I guess it's necessary, like it has been for us to have freedom, for us to be able to shoot this video, to be able to talk about it, you know, to have the freedom to do those things. It's been done through a gun. That's just a fact of life in the modern era. And at least the gentleman was alive and could bring this back and tell the story. Unfortunately, somebody had to give theirs for him to be able to do that. But you know, we are looking for more stuff to put into our Bring Back series. You know, if you know how to contact us, which we always have our information, and there's anything you're interested in seeing or whatever, let us know. We're still actively looking for things, but it's been kind of a really, really neat experience and an honor to have a lot of these firearms here, because every single one of these guns that we've had on our Bring Back videos have been brought to us by people that we know.
That have donated use of them for us to make these videos.
That's right. And, you know, it's an honor to do that, and I thank those people. And, you know, it's still, you know, looking at this gun, it just begs to tell you stuff, but
things we'll never know.
Things we'll never know, and I'll just let my imagination, you know, go wild.
Thanks for visiting this rifle with us today in our Bring Back Trophies of War series. We're going to give you a walk around and show you what kind of shape the stock and the rest of the rifle are in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share our videos. See you soon.
Thanks.